Let's talk about UVing. UVing is an area of 3D that students seem to struggle with quite a bit. And maybe I'm thinking that it's the concept of UVing that the students aren't getting. So ask yourself, do you know what you're trying to do when you UV a 3D object? Well, what you're trying to do is take that 3D object and lay it out completely flat. So there's no overlapping faces, no overlapping surfaces, and it is completely two-dimensional. So with that being said, how do you go about doing that? There are different ways, different techniques you can use to make the UVing process happen. But what you're ultimately trying to do is cut these edges on an object, for example. In this case, we have a cube, and cut them in such a way that it will lay out flat, but it's one contiguous piece still. Now, you can cut objects so that they are comprised of more than one piece, but most of the time you're going to want to keep them in one piece when they're laid out flat in the UV space. So ultimately what you want to do when you're UVing is something like this. You want to get this cube to lay out completely flat like that. Now you're not actually going to make the cube lay out flat in 3D space, but in the UV space it's going to lay out flat like this to be successfully UV'd. That's the number one thing that you need to worry about when you're UVing, is making sure that your object lays out flat. Now you might think, well, that's all well and good for a cube. What about circular objects or rounded objects? Well, we have over here a cylinder. Let's take a look at the cylinder. Now with the cylinder, the first thing I'm going to do, just for simplicity's sake, is I'm going to tip it over onto its side. And the reason I'm doing that is not because that's what you would do if you were to UV the object, but it's just going to be easier for you, I think, to visualize this laying out flat onto a surface. So let's watch the cylinder lay out flat. So first it tips over, and then the other pieces lay out flat like so. Now in the case of the cylinder, you might actually attach these end pieces back to the cylinder. I do that quite frequently when I am UVing. That way I know which cylindrical end goes with which laid out flat rectangular part. But you don't have to do that. If you're comfortable not doing that, then don't do that. So just imagine these different objects are hollow 3D objects that you have in the real world. Like imagine you have a little cardboard box. How would you cut that cardboard box in order to lay it out flat on, say, your desktop? Your actual desktop, not the computer desktop, but your actual desktop. Where would you cut it? And then how would you unfold it? And the same thing with the cylinder. Imagine you had a tin can. How would you cut a tin can so that it lays out completely flat on a surface? That's what we're trying to do with UVs ultimately. We don't do that in the 3D space. These things are not something we're going to do to the actual 3D objects. They'll be done in the UV space. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps you understand the concepts behind UVing, and it'll make it easier for you to do that when you're actually trying to UV objects. Thanks for watching.